Welcome back, everybody. This is ACES 53 with Ed Parcaut, and I am Brian Galke. And what we thought we'd talk about today is picking back up after Tuesday's talk, which was don't do everything based on pricing alone, but instead, how do you build value? So, Ed, how are you doing today?
Good. I just didn't know you're going to yell it at me.
Is it that loud? That loud?
Well, you capitalized.
Oh, well, yeah.
That's yelling.
So people can see it. I thought you meant I was really yelling. Like I thought I was talking too close into the mic.
No, you should be close to the mic, though. That was
yeah.
much better sound than the way you've been coming across.
Was it? Okay. I moved it closer. Look,
it's just better quality, when you edit stuff.
But, I'm always quality, Ed. You shut your mouth.
All right, stop. All right. So the biggest thing we talked about, like, price. Don't sell on price. And a lot of people go, well, of course, that's smart. I'm telling you, I don't care what you're doing. Most people still try to do that, and that is the worst thing you can do. And for my industry right now, it's no other time in history you need to figure out a different way than price.
Absolutely. Well, what is it? They expect the Federal Reserve to raise it again tomorrow to the highest it's been.
No, that was yesterday.
Years. Was that yesterday?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. See, I keep up with current events.
And it really, and this is the last I'll say about what the Fed does has nothing to do with mortgage rates.
Right.
Sometimes go in the same trough or whatever, but basically that is short-term rates, overnight rates to banks, credit cards, all that stuff. So people keep asking, what do you think about the Fed? I said, I don't care.
Right.
Because they need to put us in a recession. They're going to keep going until they destroy the economy when it comes to employment. And that's what their goal is right now. It's not a good goal, but that's what it is.
Right. And so really what spawned this was, Ed and I were talking last week about too many people are trying to price or bid everything based on price. And what happens is that becomes a race to the bottom for everybody. And it's especially hard if you have a commodity, because then all you can do is if you're a plumber and you don't have a way to show value, then what happens is people call around, they get the cheapest estimate. That's what people go with. And we talked about last week, sometimes the cheapest option ends up being the most expensive in the long run. A good example, I'll use a personal example in this one. Used to live in a historic home, and it was either we had a gas leak in the pipes, and they were like, okay, well, we can replace these pipes for $1,500, or we can replace all your pipes for $3,500. Now, this was a 115-year-old house, spent the $3,500 to go ahead and do all the pipes, because you fix one, and later they're going to come back out again. You're going to get your service charge, everything else. So it's paying. Sometimes you buy the more expensive product, but why? Because of the value that they put behind it. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. What are the top 10 ways that you can show the value behind your product and or service to help you keep your prices high? And you and I were talking on Tuesday about how it's also interesting that people who pay the least amount for something is sometimes the biggest pain in the ass, versus some people will teach you to do nothing. If you have a product and it's not a commodity, the first thing a coach will tell you is double your prices. Why? Because you can deal with half as many people and you still make the same profit.
Right. Well, that's how it used to be on loans. It's the way it is on loans. I mean, you can go with price and try to be the cheapest in town. And the issue with that is it's not going to help you. You're going to have to do 10 times the amount, 30 times the amount than somebody else who just does a few at a good, decent price. And that's the problem.
So. And that's, I get it. People are money motivated. If you can save money and you're doing it the smart way, do it. For example, if you're buying a car and there's a significantly bigger discount to go to a dealership that has equal service to your local dealership, do it. But don't go buy a car from a dealership that has, yes, the car is cheaper, but then their service and everything else sucks on it afterwards. So there are good ways to save money. Look, on an airline flight, I'm going for the cheapest flight if it's on the airline I want. So is that maybe a 10 a.m. versus a 2 p.m.? If it'll save me a couple $100, I'm going to do it. But if you're paying for
I'm sorry, I cut you off. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just saying, if it's a flight, it's a flight.
Right. And if it's first class, it's first class.
Exactly.
They'll serve you the same stuff.
Right.
That's why I like flying the red eye to Florida, right? Because it's less expensive, but the fact that I get to sleep the whole time I'm there, and I get up, I come in, and I'm like, oh, they're like, but you can't get your room. Who cares?
Yeah, I already slept.
And actually, 9 times out of 10, you can get into your room in some of these hotels, right? Because they have rooms reserved.
So I'll give away.
I did that in New York, and I did that in Florida.
I have someone I know who, what they used to do is they would call up the hotel pretending to be their administrative assistant and say, Mr. Galke will be arriving at 9 a.m. today. Can you please ensure that the room is available for his early arrival? And because it's an assistant calling on their behalf, they would always get their rooms available.
Really?
Yeah. So they set up a fake email address, right? Just susieg@gmail.com, whatever it was. And they would email the hotel and or call and just, we want to reaffirm, I'm in charge of Mr. Galke's travel. And if you could reaffirm that his room will be available upon arrival, because he has to change clothes before speaking, whatever it was that this person had, that's what they had, is they had a fake assistant that would call ahead of them and get it done. So cool little trick.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Tired. Those lights are too bright back there. I prefer the shadow right now than those
You
lights.
live in the shadows.
I'm
Is
in
that
the
what it is?
shadow. But I want to go back to your price where you say people just do it for a certain reason. Well, I think more people sell on price because they don't know how to sell.
Agreed.
They need to go back to school. They need to, what I mean is at sales school. They need to learn how to actually sell. People are so used to just doing the thing, thinking they know how to sell, when in reality, you don't know. You need to go back to the greats, listen to them. You need to listen to us. You need to just listen and figure that out, because you have one bite at the apple pretty much these days.
Yes.
There is no coming back. You don't have, and there's less, like in our industry, we're running the numbers. We're at half of what we normally would sell for the first 7 months of this year for homes in our county. So that means you have less numbers. You don't have, so the opportunities are less. You can't miss those opportunities. So you need to really focus and know how to come across and talk to people and understand things. I don't know if I had to talk with you earlier this week, but I had somebody reach out to me that through an agent, and he's like, I just want to let you know, I spoke with one of my friends and I'm waiting to hear back from, I talked to him yesterday, and the whole time on the phone, I was talking to him, and in the first 2 minutes, I told them they could do it, not an issue. This is how you do it, blah, blah, blah. And they said that. I just want to let you know. I'm like, so what you're telling me is you're going to go with somebody who still hasn't got back to you, but somebody else who could tell you in a minute and a half to 2 that you could do what you want to do. You're going to go with somebody else.
It's unbelievable how some people think and so you provide a service, right? And that's one of the things that, like you said, you may only get one bite at the apple. On the other side of the spectrum, when somebody comes up with a new product or service that's not something that people use every day, when you go and try and research, like, how do you price yourself or your products? Because I went through this, people pull it out of their butt. There is no, table or anything that tells you this is what X should cost. And that's where pricing comes in too, is kind of like we popped up in the last set. If you undervalue it, you do it for too cheap, people think, well, why can you do it for so cheap? You must suck. There's something wrong with you. But then if you overprice it, you never get a buyer. So there's an interesting part about it all. And we've both read Russell Brunson's books, right? And what is you have to build so much value into a product and or service or your business that it's a no-brainer for them to say yes.
Well, that's because what they do is they, discount it so much.
Right.
So they're, all right, here's the stack. You get this, this, and by the way, we're going to throw this in today. Like the Ron
the old Billy Mays. But wait, there's more.
I was going real old. I said Ron Popeil.
Yeah, I don't know who that one is. I think
he's the original guy that did the infomercial.
Oh, see, I
he's
always
the
remember
Pocket Fisherman. Remember the old Pocket Fisherman? These are on reruns. That's the only reason I know about it.
Sure.
A bunch of other stuff he came up and sold, the Slice-O-Matic and all those other things. So it slices, it dices, and all that stuff. He was the original. Oh, he's, as kids would say, the OG.
Yeah, I always remember Billy Mays. But wait, there's more.
Yeah, but that's because he died. So everybody remembers him.
No, it's because when I was growing up, it was his infomercials that were on all the time. I'm younger than you, so you had your old man.
Not much, but okay, whatever, old man. But no, it's just a matter of, again, knowing the value. You need to, what's that acronym that everybody uses? Your unique.
You calm down. It's gonna be one of the numbers here in a minute.
Okay, I'll wait.
It's gonna be number which one was it? All number right. 2. So you're only one ahead.
All right. But it's really understand who your market is. We've talked about this, we've beat this. Right. You need to know who your perfect client is and only focus on them. Talk to them and talk the way that you talk to them. Don't be somebody else, right?
Right.
I saw a quick TikTok this morning that was talking about a guy was saying he loved Joe Rogan, and he put a post on his thing, and then some of his people called him and said, "Hey, you need to take that down."
Yep. I think
You
I
know what
sent
I'm
that one
talking
to
about?
you. Yeah,
Huh?
I just did a story. I posted that to my story yesterday. That was a good example. Go
Well,
ahead.
and he says, "No,
Yeah.
how would I get rid of you and not work with you anymore? I'd rather be myself and be who I am. I'm Popeye,
Yep.
and just move forward that way. And that's how you should be. Because people are like, well, you're nobody until you have haters.
Right.
First of all, you haven't made it until somebody doesn't like what you do and they talk bad about you.
So for people who haven't seen it, it was a guy talking about, he just, like Ed said, all he put out was, I enjoyed Joe Rogan's podcast. And he lost 50,000 people immediately unsubscribed from him on
Right.
social media. And
Well,
one
he
of
had
his
enough. He had enough to lose that many anyway.
yeah,
So.
he had like 500,000. So it was a significant hit. 50,000 people to walk away just because you made a single post was interesting to him. But like you said, a company that he worked with called up and said, hey, we're partners with you and we think you need to take down that post. And he stood his ground and said, then I don't think we should work together, because if you're asking me to change who I am,
Right,
I'm not being authentic. Right.
You want me to lie about whatever. And that's the thing. People will change to be that way, or they'll go, look at my expensive car. Look at this. I remember when I was 27 years old, driving out of I'm just throwing this out there. I'm not trying to brag because I'm not there now. Out of my gated community in Rancho Santa Fe in San Diego, my 500 SL, I'd go get some gas, and you'd hear these kids go, oh, I got daddy's car.
Yeah.
No, I don't have daddy's car. I just made a lot of money. And that's how I have this car. But the issue, that was at that time of my life, because I was dirt road poor so early on, that was important to me to make sure that I made it with that. It's not until later on that it's like, okay, I was dirt road poor, made it. Now I drive a F-250. Right. So it's like, and again, it's a, truck. And so I guess I could be dirt road poor again. But anyway, the statement is you need to, who are you? It takes us a while to figure that out, usually in our 20s to figure that who we are. Right. And then in our 30s, we know.
That's it.
And 40s, maybe 50s.
We talk about all the time. Who you are at 16, 18, 21, 25, 30, keep going every 5 years is vastly different because you have different experiences, right? When you're 16, you're happy to have a car. When you're 18, I can go to an R-rated movie. I can do more things. 21, you see who can handle their liquor, who can't.
21. When we started at freaking 16, how to handle your liquor
in public, right? Because you can drink
it
at
depends.
home.
Depends on where you're talking.
Yeah,
it was a totally different world when we were kids.
True. 25, 30, you name it. But to what your point was, is you have to figure out what is your USP or your unique selling position. And
proposition.
Yeah, I don't know why they put proposition. I just realized that because I've always heard unique selling position, but
no, it's proposition.
You're propositioning people.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right.
I don't want to get into it and Google it and figure it out for you.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, but it is what makes you unique. So even if using the example of you sell cars, there was a guy I knew who what he did is he made YouTube videos for the car owners after they bought it. Hey, just so you're familiar with your car, this is where this is located. There was a guy who he sold hot tubs, and he was a 19-year-old kid, and the coach gave him advice of make YouTube videos about the most common questions that hot tub owners have after they buy it. So what did that do? That kept him top of mind. And he got them to tell their friends, oh, you're thinking about getting a hot tub? Here's this guy's YouTube channel. And that turned into people coming in to buy a hot tub, which is a commodity from this kid. And they weren't asking for discounts and everything because they saw him as an authority on it. So they asked him for advice, but not for discounts.
Not discounts, huh?
Nope, no discounts. No race to the bottom.
Well, the question is also, when was that? Because for a couple of years there, they didn't have enough, so you had to pay over.
It was pre-COVID. So, yeah. It was 2019, I think, when we first met him. But, yeah, basically, what sets you apart? What are you going to offer that's different? And this can be in so many different things. Like, started off today talking about a plumber. What's going to make you a different plumber than the other people? Is it
Joe the plumber?
Yeah. Is it how many you have on your team? Are you one person? That if you go out of business, I'm screwed. Do you have teams? Right now, I'm sure most of the country's going through this. HVAC people, heating and air conditioning. Well, air conditionings are pumping pretty hard when it's 105 degrees here. And so if you had
95 today.
Here it's 105, I think. But
not only that, you probably have 100 plus humidity.
That's exactly what I was going to say. The humidity is what's killing people. And so When your HVAC goes out, yeah, it's cool that you Steve, the HVAC guy, and you got a deal on the air conditioning unit, but now he's one person, he's got 50 clients before he can get to you. So then maybe it would have been better to go with someone that's going to cost you a little bit more for the HVAC, but they have a team that can support it if it goes down instead of you waiting on one person. And that's not to discourage small business people. If you are a small business person, hey, you're a person to me, not a number. You can go the inverse, but you have to figure out what is it that makes you different, especially if what you're selling or offering is a commodity. And, similar to how you're in something that's quasi considered a commodity, right? I used to
bite your fucking tongue. It is not a commodity.
It's not?
They're trying to make it a commodity.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, a commodity is something that you can buy off the shelf.
True.
They're trying to do that. But the problem with my industry is if you do that, you were talking about the most expensive. You were talking about originally about the cheapest and doing all that, and you get no service and all. That's the problem is you get these companies who can do it so cheap. Oh, I lost my light.
Yeah.
I forgot I'm in the room that has one of those lights.
The opposite of having a good idea. When it goes dark, did you just lose your thought?
Well, no, I got to move this stupid thing of file folders over here that I have on the edge of this desk in this room because the light can't see me.
So every once in a while, you're just going to have to go
switch. No, it's this side over here. I just got to lean back. I realized that yesterday. I was like, oh, man, I got to move that. And I still haven't done it.
All right. What's the third one? This is kind of what we were talking about. One of the biggest ways that you can build value into your product is high quality of service. So the old adage everybody's heard, under promise and over deliver. Can't stress that one enough. Came from an industry that had the opposite of that. Doesn't always go so well. All these things that you said you can do. And then when it comes down time to do it, if you can't do it, that's when you get a bad reputation. So, there's the long game, which is slow play your skills and abilities on what you tell people you can do, but then turn around after the fact and over deliver. And every time you do that, that's when you get referrals. That's when you get repeat business. You've talked about what percentage did you say of your business is repeat business and or referral?
Oh, well, referral. All right. So 50% of my business comes from my radio show. Mm-hmm. Out of the other 50%, I'd say 25 to 30 is going to definitely be referral. And then the other would be repeat.
Yeah.
Or it's going to where it's 25 and 25 and 50. So I don't advertise anywhere.
Right. And why? Because you created the superior service. You delivered on what you said.
No, I have a radio show. That's why I don't advertise.
That's the other 50%. But half of your business is what comes back, right? So if you didn't have the radio show, that would be 100% of your business, right? Then you may have to advertise. But
yeah. Well, technically, radio show is a form of advertising,
right?
Because they hit me up all the time. You want to run some ads? What are you doing what do you got for 4th of July? What do you want to? I don't want to run ads. I don't want to do any of that stuff. I just want to do the radio show and promote my radio show. That's all you can do.
Mm-hmm. So what is number 4?
I don't know. I can't read
it. Exceptional customer service. This one is where a lot of people get it wrong. People are excited. They're very enthusiastic at the sale, but then they slump after the sale's made. So after the contract is signed, some salespeople are 100% commission. So they're done with it. They wash their hands. They pass off to somebody else. If you have a bad delivery, a bad installation, a bad experience, whatever it is, that's going to determine where you move forward or not. Do you ever use that company again? Using a personal experience, bought some stuff from Nebraska Furniture Mart. They chipped it like a piece of the vanity when they were bringing it in. Rather than
right?
What's that?
Go ahead.
It was a small little piece, but they immediately on the spot said, "We're sorry. We're going to go ahead and credit you back this amount, or we can take this back and we'll bring you a new piece back." It was a small little speck off of it. But the fact that they acknowledged it and handled it right then and there, instead of, oh, well, you have to call the corporate to talk about a discount. They knew they messed up. They immediately handled it. They resolved the situation. And more importantly, they gave me the option. Do I want to wait next week and get a brand new one? Or am I willing to take this one and get a discount off the price? And it was going in the bathroom. Nobody was going to see it. It was in the master bath. I took the discount.
So you're cheap.
On that one, I just wanted it. I didn't want to wait another week. We'd moved into the house. Things are still in boxes. I'm like, nobody's going to see it. Let's just take it. But the way they handled it Wasn't
Right.
like, oh, not our fault. You're going to have to call. You're going to have to handle it. Putting all the onus on me. Instead, they're like, these are the two ways we can handle it. What would you like us to do? And
Well,
that's why I will always use Nebraska Furniture Mart.
all right. That's like our movers, Big Island movers, when they moved us to our current house from our other house, they had scratched the bed, the mess, our bed. And they're like, okay, well, this is real wood because I don't do, crap. And he's like, we'll take it to have it fixed, refinish, and bring it back. And so that's what they did. And you couldn't tell. And that was the way it should be, not try to hide it. Because I've had cleaning people for like the last 15, 20 years, the same people, and all of a sudden something's missing. They broke it, but they didn't tell you. They broke it and threw it away. It's like, you should put a little note here. I'm sorry, I broke this.
Well, when you live in a mansion, they probably figure that you're not going to miss that one little knickknack, Ed.
I don't live in a mansion. My house is only 2,000 square feet. I'd get lost in those other rooms.
Yeah, I can't imagine having one that wide.
Well, it's like when we were going to build our forever home, it was 3,000 square feet, and the island could sit 15 people. My wife, like, I don't even know 15 people I like. I only have like 5 or 6.
And 2 of those are dogs.
2 of them, one is my husband.
You're like, Steve. Steve likes his wife, 2 of his 3 kids, and his dogs, as he always says. Now, the funny thing about what you were talking about is how do you build trust? And that is that transparency. So to your point, if when they broke something, they immediately came to you and said, hey, by the way, when we're cleaning this fell over, it broke, that would build more trust and credibility than somebody who tries to hide it.
Yep.
This one, hands down, is my biggest pet peeve. The amount of times that people want to hide something from the customer. Are you familiar with who Ray Dalio is at all?
Know the name. Yeah.
Yeah. So huge, like, I think he's got one of the largest hedge funds that's out there, just huge in the financial sector. And he wrote a book called Principles, very, very thick book. I would recommend getting on Audible versus actually reading the entire book. But he has a policy of what he calls radical transparency. And that is, you'll never get fired for making a bad trade because it can be examined, right? So we talked about postmortems. However, you'll get fired immediately for hiding a bad trade, because when you do it, if the company's going to lose money, at least there's a lesson that can be learned from it. But when you just try and hide it, that's when you get fired. And there's so many times when, are they difficult discussions to have with customers? Did some shit go wrong? Yes. But when you do those is when you build respect, because people have more respect of how you handle adversity and problems than how you just sell them a product. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's really important because I've had many processors mess up on a transaction that cost me money. And, and they're like, they're expecting to get fired. And I'm like, no, that was such an education. That'll never happen again, will it?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's because they feel so bad. It's like, you can't. And that's why when I do, when I restarted my Inner Edison podcast and I'm asking people, what's your greatest thing? And someone says, well, I lost 20 grand on this thing. It's like, really? That was your biggest loss?
Yeah.
I've lost that in a month with, with processors learning. I just, but to each his own. And then, so at first when I heard it, I was taken back by it. And I was internally, I'm like going, that was no big deal. But for each person, it's different. Right. Even this. And that's why you can't just across the board say you're wrong. That's not enough. But for them, it was enough, stopped them to where they never wanted to do that again. That's fine. They were smarter than me. Yeah.
Well, some people are towards pleasure and away from pain. Right. So
everybody,
anything is, yeah. And so it's interesting because when we fail is when we look for feedback. We examine failure. We don't examine success. And that's why I was talking to a different group this morning. And that is, the best players don't make the best coaches. Why? Because they can't, number one, if they've always succeeded, they don't know how to handle and look at things from a different perspective. But sometimes it's so inherently that they can't break it down and describe it to make other people successful.
Right.
And
yeah. And I was going to say, and it depends on what the thing is, because if I go back when I was trying to get better internet, right, and current Comcast says, for $200 more a month, we can get you 100 by 100 instead of the 900 download and 39 upload. We can get you 100 and 100 with fiber optic. If they would have said 900, I probably would have went with them because I liked all their services that I had.
Right.
But they didn't. And I had AT&T, and everyone's like, well, they're gonna bump your prices. I know, but I'm not in a contract with them. Right. So I don't
Right.
care. I could go back to Comcast and if they finally bring that to but the issue I had is how the salespeople dealt with it. My
Right.
original agent, who I've been dealing with for years at Comcast, she sent her lackey to me to send me the information instead of her. And then and then they came back to me a week later and go, so what do you think? And I said to them, all right, so what you're telling me is my bill will be $644 a month to get 100 by 100, or I can go with AT&T for $185 a month and get a gig and a gig.
Right.
I think I'm going to go that route.
But
they could have came back and said, hey, we totally understand it. We get it right now with where you're going. That's how you should have handled it.
Mm-hmm.
Not the other way. They hid from it. So will I ever use them as my account reps again? Probably not. If I ever go back.
That's exactly what you're talking about. That is something that you look at price, and you already had their services, so you could have stayed with them, but the way they handled it, right? On that one, it's a no-brainer. That one is a price-based decision. Why would you pay 3 times more, right? 600 versus 200, but then on top of it, the way that they presented it was what made it worse.
Well, no, they want me to pay more for 100 by 100,
right? Instead of
not 1,000 by 1,000,
right?
That was not it was not a price base. That was they don't have that feature right now and not available. What they should have said is, hey, right now I would recommend you go with them.
Right.
Down the road, when we actually can get fiber to your building, we will have a better blah 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 blah, and then we'll ask you to come back at that time.
Yeah.
You follow me?
Yeah.
That's like the people who work at certain companies and say, hey, we don't have that, but so-and-so down the road does. Go see them. You always will go back to that person.
Yes, because they referred you to what you needed versus what they wanted to sell you. 100%. Right. Well, and that comes down to, actually, you led us right into number 6. And that is,
I should just teach this shit.
I'm just telling you, it's almost like you read my banners ahead of time.
I haven't. I deleted the ones above me. I saw them going up. I was hoping you were not going, oh my God, they're going away.
Oh, no. I just had never seen it move before whenever I'm not the one moving it. So personalize and customize. This is a big one. I was even just in the meeting I was in earlier today. The guy talked about when they sends out emails to people with a prospect or something. One of the things that he does is he puts the name of the organization in the email. Hey, I'd love to come and talk to you guys at blah, blah, blah. And the reason why, when they reply, he knows who the person is. But we all hate when we get what we know is a spam email with no customization to it. Or when they give you we used to have to do requests for proposals. And it's one of those, the forest for the trees thing. So this isn't attacking anyone. This is just something that was easy for me as a salesperson to catch that they sometimes miss. I'd be reading through an RFP response and we'd have another customer's name in there. And I'm like, look, everybody copies and pastes, but make sure before it goes out that it's got the right person's name at it. Or a friend texted yesterday, I'll call him out, Les Brown, his marketing team sent out an email that it said, dear, and in the brackets, first name, comma, last name. And so, they just didn't catch it before they sent out the marketing material. So when you think of someone as large as Les Brown, and I know he's not personally sending the emails, but you're kind of thinking, somebody got fired for that one. So,
well, you should send it to yourself first to make sure everything lines up, because I'm the president of Rotary of my Rotary, and I had to send out emails to all the people, right? And so, of course, I sent it to myself first to make sure it was right.
So you check it, but that's the whole thing is everybody wants to feel like this is a custom fit for me, not this is the same thing that you sold to everybody. And that's when you go from a smaller corporation to a larger corporation and your customers become numbers, bigger corporations are surprised that customers leave them. And that was a number one complaint in one industry I was in was, well, we used to be an important customer. Now we're just a number. And that's just it. People want to feel like I'm your most important customer. Even though I know you have other customers, I still want to think I'm the most important, especially when we're talking or you're sending me proposals or emails or anything.
Well, and the easiest way to connect with somebody is what I talk about all the time, like we do on radio, it's you. Make sure you say you in there.
Yes.
To them.
Not listeners.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm just saying, yeah, whatever they are,
Mhm.
because like I did, I could have done Rotarians for my first email out. I didn't. I wanted to make it more personal to them, even though they know everybody got the email, but it was more personal.
I was
Break it down
reading
to be more personal. So
somebody was posting on Facebook, and it was two fairly large organizations, and they said, "What's the number one sign that you're entering into a bad relationship?" And the answer was when the person never uses you or we, but only me and I. I thought that was interesting. So, because then that person only cares about their business, their profit, and not the partnership together. So, if there's a we, they're caring about the partnership. If there's a you in it, then it's, hey, I want to help you succeed, and that helps me succeed. And so people's language giving them away when they do that.
well, it's what it's a bad relationship if they say me and so and so.
Yeah. There was somebody I used to work with. The joke was when they get up to talk, their favorite talk is, let me tell you about me. So once you have an idea of what those first 6 were, how do you personalize it? How do you build trust? How do you create excellent customer service? You name it. Then it's, how do you put those things into your marketing and branding? How does it become known as a part of what you provide? Because it's when you build that then you can determine what your price is. So I mentioned on Tuesday, currently reading through the book, Book Yourself Solid, and taking an online course of it as well, about how businesses and companies and people built their individual businesses. And what they said is the first part is 60 to 80% of your time needs to be to understand your audience, their wants, their needs on a personal level, then putting that into your branding. Then you go out and you do your marketing. So you have to do all those other steps that we talked about today first, because if you just go out and go, hey, I'm Ed, use me, or hey, I'm Brian, invite me to speak.
I thought that's what you do.
Well, I do, but I do it jumping up and down and on TikTok. I learned these dances. My favorite, my favorite ones that drive me nuts on any social media stuff, and they've got the little words.
That was so last year.
It's coming back. I see people doing it again. Yeah,
I guarantee you, it's the same one being replayed again.
No, it's current topics.
Oh, yeah,
yeah. So maybe I don't know.
Maybe they're just newer. Is it somebody we know doing it?
No, I was just scrolling through while I was waiting for a video to upload. But yeah, I saw the. Yeah, I hate those.
You hate them?
I hate them with a passion.
That's a really strong word. Hate.
I know, it happens. All right, what are the last 2 or last 3 actually?
Jesus, we're gonna be here all day.
I know. Well, we like to provide an education.
My light might go out again. It's like every 15 minutes.
Your internal light, like your soul. If I keep talking, is that?
No, the actual light in the room that's on a timer.
Yeah. Customer feedback and improvement. Look, we have an idea of how we think things work. I used to say we know how to make things work in the test environment, in the sandbox, but you want feedback from customers on how things really work. How did it work from their perspective? Steve is fantastic. Not about saying, hey, how did you like the event? Because people go, oh, it's great. But he'll instead ask the question, if there was a way to improve the event for the next time we have it, what would your recommendation be? Asking questions like that, getting feedback, is how you get more people not only to sign up for the next one, but how do you really create and keep improving every time you do something?
Well, that's the difference between closed-end questions and open-end questions.
It's right. Exactly.
That's what you call that. That's what that is. It's like the first time my wife and I were on a blind date together. It didn't work out. She spun out faster than I could at the end of the night. And everybody kept going, asked her, well, he didn't really talk. I'm like, I answered your questions. You were just asking closed-in questions. So it was a yes or no. If you want me to elaborate, then you need to ask that type of a question.
Exactly. So for people who don't know open-ended and closed-ended questions, open-ended are you give people a wide berth that they can give.
It was just what you did about what you're talking about, Steve.
Right.
So the question was, those are 2 examples. First one was, what'd you think of the event? It was great.
Yeah.
Did you like the event? Yes.
We talked about it in Chris Voss's book, which I guess you can't see unless I zoom out.
That's okay. You don't have to keep showing everybody the name dropping and the books.
He gets to the point where
I'm doing this free. I get in for free and you don't.
Oh no, that's a book I really loved. I read that multiple times.
I'm talking about your other book.
Yeah. That is, so Chris Voss says you want to get to that's right, not yes or no questions. And you do the parroting and you feedback whatever they say. The last thing is, oh, I like that book. Like the book. And then they tell you why they like the book. So you go into more detail.
I was on a podcast and they cut it up and I was like, shoot, I said, right.
Yeah.
In three of those things, I said, right. You understand?
Right.
It's like
Right.
the one thing you shouldn't be saying, right.
Mine is so. Oh, there was a speaker the other day who, when he's talking, he looks at me and goes, "Do you understand?" And I'm like, dude, I would cut that one out of your. It sounded like he was yelling at him. I was like,
well, I ask people when I'm talking to them about something, I say, are you following me? Are you understanding what I'm
talking
about?
Are you following me? Yeah. That's one thing. If you look at somebody and you're a passionate speaker and you go, "Do you understand?" Then it sounds like you're, yelling at them or critiquing them. So
kind of like your opening statement.
Yes, that's exactly it. All right. Last two, and then we got to get out of here. So partnerships and collaboration. This has been one that we all hear about it. Your parents talk about when you're a kid, who do you hang out with is who you become. It's no different in business. Who you're associated with is how you're seen. Make sure the people, if you are partnering up with people, because partnering up is a great way to expand a business. You take somebody else's followers, you help them, they help you, you share cross audiences, but you get associated with those people. So make sure if you are going to collaborate with people, that it's with the right people. And do your research. Don't follow and believe what they don't confuse the message with the messenger. Meaning they may have a Lamborghini, but maybe it's one they rented for the day. They may show off all these things and then they are sitting in a 1-bedroom studio. Or I guess this studio is smaller than a 1-bedroom, but it's
studio is not there's a 1-bedroom and then there's a studio.
That's what I was gonna say. Then there's a studio. So I should have gone with the smallest, the most restrictive first. But that's the whole thing. Do your research before you just jump in with anybody, because you may like them, but you need to see what the public perception is of them, their business, every aspect of their life, because you never know how that can backfire on you.
Now, or if you had a 5.0.
Yeah. Rolling in the 5.0 like a Mustang.
Because that, dude, what you keep saying is a song from
Rolling
Vanilla Ice.
Ice Baby?
No, because it talks about collaborate and whatever.
That's Ice Baby. Stop, collaborate, and listen.
Yeah, so that's all you're talking. All I'm thinking is, dun, 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 I'm in my 5.0.
All right. Last but not least, some people think a way to keep the customer around and build value is to offer incentives and loyalty programs. What is a reason for them to keep doing business with you? You see this in a lot of internet marketing when you get emails. Hey, since you're a loyal customer, you get this discount. People love discounts if they've already bought from you and they're expanding or adding to what they already have. Because then they look at, well, let's say I'm buying a product, and because I've already in the inner circle or whatever the mastermind may be called, then to add that product on is an extra $200. But if you go to the website and you see that it's $1,000 for anybody else to do it, people will tend to buy because they think, I've already earned it because I spent money before. So it's a different way that people will continue to buy from you, is rewarding them. And you're not offering, you didn't discount your first product, but then it doesn't hurt you to discount ancillary products after that or services.
Right. And if somebody that you've been working with for a while didn't come back because of some reason or something else, maybe you should still stay in contact with them. You should still be part of that. You shouldn't just like cut off all ties with them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you never know, they might come back because they like what you're doing. But when the reason they're not working with you had nothing to do with you, but had to do with something else.
So I'm going to go the inverse on this particular one. Nothing drives me crazier than when you call to cancel a service on something and then they offer it to you at a third of the price of what you're currently paying. Hey, I'm going to change from AT&T to Verizon. Oh, well, we don't want you to leave, so we can cut your bill by 2/3. You're like, why didn't you do that before? Right. But it's
because you weren't leaving us then.
Exactly. It's no different. If you say, hey, I'm going to resign from my job. Well, wait a minute. We value you more. Here's some extra money. It's like, so it's only until I threaten to leave you that all of a sudden I'm worth it. It's kind of funny.
Well, no, because they just didn't have to realize that they needed to deal with it.
Incentivize you. Yeah. Right. So,
and it's important to take care of them before they want to leave.
Absolutely.
But I'm just saying, as like, if you have a client and that client, stops what they're doing with you because of something in their life, you shouldn't not keep working with them. You know what I mean? You should be communicating with them even though they do. Because I've had people come back to me years and years later, even though they didn't use me for the last transaction, because this agent told them they have to use this person, and then they come back to me later.
There is one guy who's out on the internet. Everybody would know his name if I said it. But if you buy any of his programs and you go through it and you say, hey, I just don't feel like it was worth the money, he's like, I'll resign you from you and I will unsubscribe you from every one of my emails and everything so that you never have to hear from me again. Like, he goes so extreme of, if you want to take the refund, he's like, cut them out of everything. So then people are like, I don't want to miss out on those other things. So they won't ask for their refund.
That's how he handles it instead of above and beyond.
Yeah. Not what I'd recommend, but the guy he's approaching a billionaire. So I think he can lose a few people here and there. Anywho, thanks everybody for joining us. Or Ed, did you have more?
Well, I was just gonna say the whole thing about the 5.0, why it's so fresh in my memory, is because I just saw the movie, the Fast and Furious, 112.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
Well, anyway, in there's a scene when it comes, and I won't tell you anymore since you haven't seen it yet, but that's how I remember it. That's why I just saw that last weekend. So.
I was looking through movies last night because I decided to stay in, and it's to rent. It's still $20. I'm like, hey, look, I got a flight to California next week. I'm sure it'll be on there. If not, I'll find that or Renfield or something to watch on the flight. But yeah, I was being cheap about it. It is interesting that they're on 10, but I can't remember. There was a joke about the 10th one, but I'll remember what it was later.
Anyway, but go ahead and take us out now. Thank you.
So once again, thanks for joining us today on Thursday for ACES 53. What I didn't bring up at the beginning is, why is it called ACES 53? Back when Ed was in college, he had a professor who talked about what are the 4 best cards in the deck, and that is 4 aces. And then what's the 53rd card? It's a joker. So what you'll see every once in a while is Ed and I will bring in someone else who is the joker, and that joker is someone who has a special skill or talent that we think would help you guys out. And they're going to come in and kind of talk about the topic for that week and help you guys learn as well. So the best way to help us out is to like, share, and follow us at ACES53 on YouTube, or edparcaut.com, or briangalke.com, or subtleskills.com. So with that being said, we will see y'all next week. Thanks, Ed.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for being here. We appreciate you.
Yeah. Bye, y'all.